So in any event, we're here in America today in the coming into the second decade of the 21st century, and we have a new president, Barack Obama. And I know so many of you in this room are the reason that we have a new president, Barack Obama, and why he got 68% of the vote in our state, which was one of the best states in the nation. I know that Yvette was very much involved in that. I know David Hart, who's here with us from, he's, you know, I live in St. Mary's County right now, but I grew up and I went to Suitland High School. Some of you know where that is, down the southern part of our county. So I grew up in District Heights, Maryland. That's where I grew up. I was a kid there, and Judy and I lived there for most of our lives. Then I moved uptown to Forestville, which is just next door. And then we moved around and then down in St. Mary's County now. But the David, I always kid my friends from Montgomery County. I said, well, you know, that's the rich folks over there. We understand they're very tolerant of us, but we appreciate you coming over here visiting with us. So nice of you. Barack Obama became president at arguably one of the most challenging times in America in the last century and a half since Abraham Lincoln became president. And the country was divided and very fragile, and ultimately broke apart. And without Lincoln, it would have broken apart. But and then, of course, Franklin Roosevelt became president at a time of great economic distress, even deeper than today. And this is the worst since then. In 3/4 of a century, nobody in this room was alive the last time we had an economy that had devastated the nation's workforce and families as much as this one has. Think of that. You know, you place that in context. None of us were alive. I was born in 1939, just at the end, and so my parents experienced it, but I did not. When Barack Obama became president, we'd already done something that people didn't understand and didn't like and still don't understand and still don't like. We passed what was called TARP, Temporary Asset Relief Program. We passed that at the request of President Bush and his Secretary of the Treasury and Ben Bernanke, the head of the Federal Reserve. And they said if we didn't pass it, the financial structure of our country would fall apart, and with it our entire economy. And we wouldn't have 9.7% unemployment. We'd have 19.7 or 29.7 unemployment. So we passed it. We passed it in a bipartisan fashion in request to a Republican president, Democratic-controlled Congress, because we thought it would stabilize. And it has. But people didn't like it because we gave a lot of money to big banks who they believed had acted irresponsibly. They are absolutely right on that issue. People had taken advantage of people. And as a result, a lot of people got in trouble. And then when they started to lose their jobs, or they couldn't make the adjusted rate prices that they didn't understand, but somebody sold them, and they didn't care whether they could pay them back. Why didn't they care? Because they were brokers. They said, I'll make a deal with you. I'll sell you this home. I'll sell you this home for $1 million. I know you only make $50,000 and you only pay $1,000 or $1,500, $2,000 a month. That's pretty high on a mortgage. But I'll sell it to you. And I'm not going to worry about it. Why? Because I'm not going to worry about whether you pay it back, because I'm not going to hold the paper. I'm going to pass it along to somebody else. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, or I'm going to have it securitized, simply meaning I'm going to turn it into a big piece of obligations what I'll sell bonds for, and the people buy a piece of it. And they'll think they spread the risk so broadly that it won't be a problem. Well, it was a problem. And the banks started to fail. And they weren't the community banks. They weren't the banks that you and I deal with every day. They were the shadow banks, the big financial houses in Wall Street. And frankly, what they were, the credit default swaps that people talked about and other very complicated financial instruments that people talked about, and nobody understood them, including the people on Wall Street. They did not understand the risk they were undertaking. And finally, the house of cards fell. Barack Obama became president. Now let me tell you the difference between Barack Obama and Franklin Roosevelt. Franklin Roosevelt took office about 4 years after 29, not quite 4 years, about 3.5 years, after the crash. Now what does that mean? That means that for 3.5 years people understood how deep the problem was and how big the action to respond to it was necessary. However, when Barack Obama took office, it had not been 4 years, 4 months. September of '08, when we passed TARP, is when people really understood this recession, the Great Recession, the deepest recession we've had in 3/4 of a century, started in December of '07. But people really didn't get it until September of '08 when we had to bail out the banks. So Barack Obama said to people in September and October of '08, I'm going to respond. The problems that confront us are big, but we can beat them, and we're going to do it. Barack Obama was sworn in January of last year, and he has kept his promise to the American people. He has responded in a way that is working. One of the first things we did was to respond to jobs, to try to create jobs and get people back to work and to stabilize the loss of jobs. Now, what did I mean by the loss of jobs? In the first month, the last month of the Bush administration, 9 days of which Barack Obama was president in January, we lost about 780,000 jobs in that month. We lost 65,000 jobs, Pastor, in 1 day in America. Now, you think of 65,000 jobs. I don't know how many people were in here. You know, we were 65, let's just say for the sake of argument. All of us lost a job, and 1,000 times all of us lost their jobs on 1 day. And then 10,000 times that lost their jobs in 1 month. And when you lose your job, you lose your ability to pay your mortgage, to buy food for your family, pay your car payment so you can get to and from work, or to and from recreation, to and from the school. And it causes a crisis in your family. And what's the other thing you lose? You lose your health care. You lose your health care because almost all of us have health care related to our employment. And if you don't have health care related to your employment, you probably, unless you're doing pretty well, can't afford to buy it because it's so expensive. That's the big issue that's going on right now. We're talking about jobs and health care, and very much related. So we passed what was called the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, and we passed it less than 30 days after Barack Obama was sworn as President of the United States. He acted quickly and decisively to reach out to people and help them. Has it helped? The answer to that question is absolutely. There are some people who say, well, you know, where are the jobs? CBO, which is the Congressional Budget Office, and a number of other independent economists, unrelated to the administration, unrelated to Democrats, just simply making an economic analysis, say that 2.4 million more Americans would be unemployed today if it weren't for the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act.